Well, I mean, they wanted to create like they wanted people to stop working. Like that was what the Fed kept talking about, which was that they wanted to see that this number come down. And what ZipRecruiter chief economist Julia Polak said is that everything's moving in the right direction, and she's never seen a report align with expectations as much as today's over the last 2 years. So I think the real question is it going to continue? And are we going to see this continue to go this way? And with now that there's more and more data around the recession is likely happening, it could lead hopefully to the Fed to stop raising rates. I mean that's really that's the end goal of this report in my view is that let's hope they just stop raising rates. Let's have them stop messing with this and let all their measures play out a little bit instead of the constant micromanagement. And if you look at the 1 month net change of jobs, this is where it's pretty interesting. Retail and trade, they were down. Construction, manufacturing, financial activities, they all saw decreases. And the places that saw increases were leisure and hospitality, healthcare and social assistance, government, go figure, professional and business services. So you're seeing some of these places that like retail trade, that tells me people are spending less money. They're being a little more conscious about what they're buying. And construction, obviously, we've talked about construction and at length on this. So we're seeing that people are starting to seeing that job. I mean, that was the biggest decrease out of all the 1 month net changes in jobs, that people are going to be a little more cognizant of their spending, which was one of the reasons why we got into this mess in the first place, because there was so much disposable income during the pandemic. People were spending all kinds of money.
They're in a tough spot, the Fed, because it's hard to tell Americans that we have too many people working. It sounds counterintuitive to having
Ridiculous.
a robust economy. And, I don't want to put Americans out of job, but it does make the, Federal Reserve's, fight against inflation, getting it down to 2% that much easier if you have less people working. Now, we could get to a point here, and I think we're a month, maybe a month and a half away of a lot of this, rent data coming out of inflation. And there's some beliefs out there that when you pull, rent and shelter out, this lagging data that's going to catch up by the end of May, when you pull it out, that inflation could drop significantly. And so if we can keep a strong job market up until the point where inflation drops, closer to that 3%, near their target's 2%, but closer to that target, you might be able to continue and move along here with a strong job market without seeing mass layoffs. We've seen some layoffs, but without or with avoiding a massive amount of layoffs. That would be the hope.
That's kind of the dream scenario if it plays out that way, because the Fed has just not wavered off this 2% inflation target. And I mean, it's every meeting, every comment they keep talking about it, which we understand it's a prime goal of theirs. So if it played out that way, I mean, Byron, you should be taking Jerome Powell's job if you can make that happen.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be that easy for him. That's the dream scenario. There are some real bulls on, this disinflation and talking about like, hey, when the rent data comes out of it, when that drops down, you're going to see inflation get really close to, that 2% under 3 anyways. They think we're like heading in that direction. Then there's people that are obviously, have a contrarian belief to that, but rents have rents dropped in Boston, Lisa?
No, it's
No.
horrid. No,
So they have in the South.
part. Okay. Yeah, no, we're not seeing it yet. We're still at crazy high. Our rental inventory, you have to, downtown Boston's a different beast than as you kind of go in the suburbs, but we're seeing a rental shortage almost just as short as our purchase shortage.
Okay, in the city, but what about if you go to some of those, half hour outside of Boston, because you work all of those markets as well. If you go into the deeper suburbs, have you seen resistance on the top end rent like that people can get? Is there resistance there?
No, and that's my part of my point. We have slightly more vacancy in the city than we do in the
Oh,
suburbs.
okay.
In the suburbs, we're still, and that's where the market is hottest, right? Is in the suburbs still over
Yeah.
actual downtown Boston. But legit, if I opened up like some of the top suburbs that people want to rent in right now, I've got less than a dozen reasonable options for rent in MLS. Now, there's a whole bunch that's available where the landlords rent directly through places like Craigslist or apartments.com or whatever, right? But what we would typically see for rental inventory is, especially right now, we're very driven by our school years, both the college school year
Yeah.
and the traditional school year. So we would expect to see those rental listings start to pop up as people prepare to move out at the end of June. So it's something that we're going to watch very closely over the next 6 to 8 weeks to see what does actually pop up, and that'll give us a good indication for where the rental market's going.
Well, it's funny. The government has this survey for tracking rents where they call people at their home, like, on the telephone and ask them what their rent is, as opposed to like getting data from CoStar or apartments.com or from Zillow to track rents. And that's what's going into this inflation number, which is just crazy to me. That's what we'd be using here at this point in the game. I'd love to know. I'm curious if you're tracking rents in your market and you're listening right now, especially if you're on YouTube, just drop it into the comments. Is the rental market, is it hotter than it was in 2022 for price point on rentals? Love to know from you in the comments.